Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Write or Die Show. I am your host, Randi-lee. On today's episode, we are going to be talking to Dorothy Husen. And I want to put a little disclaimer here. We are talking about mental health, and in this episode, we will be talking about sexual abuse. Welcome, Dorothy. Excited to have you on the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So tell us a little bit about who you are.
Sure. So I'm a baby boomer. So I just turned 60 and I had a kind of a life huge event or transition in my late 40s when I realized that I had been living with post-traumatic stress disorder my whole life and I didn't know it. And I started my healing journey in my, like I said, in my late 40s. I became a licensed marriage and family therapist, and during that learning process, I also healed myself from, well, not by myself, but with the help of a lot of other people. I healed from post-traumatic stress disorder from childhood sexual abuse.
Wow.
And that's yeah. And so what I do now, I wrote a book about my story. It's called Breaking the Chains of Transgenerational Trauma, My Journey from Surviving to Thriving. And what I do now is I help other people who have childhood trauma that manifests in their life. Maybe they don't know it, although a lot of people are much more aware of how their childhood affects them now, much more aware than I was. And I help them heal from their childhood trauma through a process I call reparenting.
Well, that's an interesting name to call it. How'd you come up with that?
It's a working with um, yeah, my inner child, or healing, being there for my self in the past as a child, and myself adult self provides for myself, my little inner child, what I didn't get when I was a child. So it's a reparenting process that is inside, internally, like in our mind.
Yeah,
And
that's kind of cool. So how did you, up until you found out that you had PTSD,
mhm.
how were you dealing with what you didn't know was going on?
Yeah, so my family had a very big emotional conversion when I was a young teenager, like right before adolescence. My whole family converted to Christianity. So this was during the 70s, during the Jesus movement. And it was an upbeat form of Christianity where there were upbeat bands and music. The Maranatha music came about during that time, Harvest Crusades. So we were kind of swept up into that form of Christianity, and it really helped my family, because prior to that there was a lot of fighting, a lot of chaos. My parents were divorced and then remarried, and um, just a lot of chaos and fighting. So when they converted, I converted as well. I was just a young kid, and so I used Christians' spiritual practices to heal, but it didn't really work for me. I thought it did. I kept trying to ask forgiveness for this shame that I felt in my body from the abuse, because I mistook that feeling of shame for sin, because that's what I was
Wow.
taught. Like, if you feel dirty, that's because of sin. And so this is what you do. You pray, you read your Bible, you go to church, you attend Bible studies. So you follow all these rules and you're accepted into this community. It was a lovely community, but still it was based on following all the rules.
Mhm.
And that's how I dealt with it. And so I told myself that I was healed. And eventually, though, I became more and more isolated, and I spent a lot of time just daydreaming into, like, I thought about heaven a lot, and I wanted to just get away from this life on earth. I didn't want to be here anymore. I just wanted to be in eternity with Jesus. And that's how it affected me in the
Okay.
long run, and just disconnected from myself, from my kids, from my life. And it got worse and worse.
Okay. What made you finally decide to go seek help?
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting story. People get a pretty big kick out of it,
Oh,
but
good.
I I was very dependent on my husband. He was the spiritual leader of the home. He was the breadwinner. He's a go-getter, workaholic. And so he was an attorney making good money, and unable to, because of he has his own childhood trauma as well, and just unable to fulfill that need within him that he had for um, what he was trying to get through achievement. And so he said, I can't do this anymore. It's killing me. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna become marriage and family therapists. And both of us working as therapists will be able to maintain our lifestyle. And I didn't think I could become a therapist, honestly, but it was our it was what I did. I did what, you know he wasn't mean about it. He was never mean. He was just like, this is what we need to do. And I was like, okay, I'll try. I'll do my
Okay.
best.
What were you doing before you became a
I
marriage
was just
counselor?
working for him. I was
Okay.
working for Yeah, we always worked together.
Okay.
I was always supporting him, and I was his helpmeet. And I don't know if you know how Christians teach about the marriage relationship, but um, that was my job. I was his helpmeet. I was to, submit to his leadership. And so yeah, I always supported him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then you went and became a marriage counselor, and from there, what happened next?
Well, that's when like all the ahas started clicking in, because as part of my training, I had to get into personal psychotherapy. In order to become a counselor, you have to go into therapy. And I told my therapist, I'm good. My life's good. Um, I don't really need therapy. I just need to experience this for school.
Yeah.
And so I got in there, and the first day, I got completely triggered. I couldn't answer. I couldn't answer her questions about my past. Taken the intake tests and stuff. And she said, "Well, I think you have post-traumatic stress disorder." And I was like, "What?"
Okay.
So, I couldn't talk about it in the beginning, and this is where the writing came in. I literally did not have the words. I could not talk about it. I'd never talked about it with anybody. It was a secret
Mhm.
that I had kept my whole life. And so it was kind of compartmentalized in my mind at 6 years old as a child. I didn't have the words. And so my therapist or counselor, she encouraged me to start writing about it. And I said, I'll give it a try.
Yeah. And that's a pretty common theme for almost every guest. I'm going to go with 99% of the guests on the show say that therapists say to write about it or that writing helps them. So, I mean, there's obviously something in that. And I know for myself, writing was my go-to, which is how the name of the show came up.
Mhm, mhm,
So I just, if people who are listening right now, if you haven't tried writing because you're like, I'm not a writer, you don't have to be a writer,
mm-mm,
right? You're
mhm,
not writing it for anybody else. You're writing it for yourself. So it really doesn't
right,
actually have to make sense. You just
right,
need to get it out.
yes, yeah, exactly. And I had, practiced journaling as a Christian, so I was familiar with it, but my writing, um, prior was just about the Bible and how I could improve, and not a whole lot of introspection, really. It was mostly about memorizing scripture and then how I could improve myself.
Yeah.
This was like the first time I actually started writing about what happened to me.
Okay. And do you mind sharing a little snippet of what happened to you?
Oh, no, I don't mind it. I wrote about it in my book as well. So, um, I was sexually assaulted at age 6. And then what happens when kids are sexually assaulted is they dissociate. You go into freeze, fight, flight, freeze, or faint. You go into freeze. And so I became vulnerable to more assaults or more abuse. I couldn't say no. So when I was assaulted, I went into freeze for survival. That's what we do as kids. We just shut down. And then I wasn't able to talk about it with any back then. I mean, this was in the 60s. We didn't know much about how to help kids. There, I wasn't put in counseling or anything like that. Um, and my mom had her own trauma from World War II. She was an immigrant from Europe,
Oh, okay.
and so she was dealing with her own trauma. She didn't know how to help me deal with what happened to me, so we just never talked about it. I mean, it just became this secret, and in my mind, I was my family's dirty little secret, and that's just how I kept it within me. And so that's how trauma, gets transferred from generation to generation because um, it's, we're so dependent on the relationship between parent and child. I was so dependent on my mom to help me, and she couldn't help me. So that um, created a vulnerability so that later on, when I like played with other kids, and maybe it was just normal kid exploration. You show me yours, I'll show you mine. I could never say no. I was completely compliant and like a robot. And so I was abused by other boys later on as well. And that's a common experience for kids who have been sexually abused. That we we do get abused again and again by other perpetrators because you can't if you can't say no, you and kids are naturally gonna are exposed to porn and other kids who are abused. They reenact it, and it just keeps um
Cycle.
you know keeps going until we deal with it, until we start talking about it and start dealing with it. And it's really important.
What made you decide to publish your book? Because this is obviously not an easy topic to talk about. And I'm guessing, and you can let me know if I'm right or wrong in my guess. I'm
Mhm.
guessing that when you started journaling for your therapy, that you weren't planning on publishing.
Yeah, that's correct. You're right on. So I started writing. Um, a friend of mine, I told her my story, and she's a ghostwriter. She was.
Oh,
Now she's a coach, a book coach and editor. But back then she was a ghostwriter. And she said, you should write a book. That's a compelling story. And I was already, journaling quite a bit. And so I said, yeah, will you help me? And she said, yeah. But when I first started writing, it was just therapeutic. It was just like almost like, just vomiting out everything about my whole
yeah,
life and just this long manuscript of, 80,000, 100,000. I don't know how many words. It was long. And my friend, she kept saying, you need to rewrite it, keep rewriting, keep rewriting. And it took me 3 years.
yeah,
um, but the last year, she said, it's a good book. You can publish it, you self publish it.
yeah,
But do you want people to read it? And I was like, well, yeah, why, I do. And then she's, so she guided me and said, then you need to start writing it for your reader. Stop writing it for yourself and start writing it for your reader. And that's a whole different shift again that took
yeah.
place. And
That's
then once
interesting.
I did that, then I was like, oh, I've got to really share the stuff that people want to hear, which is, the real personal stuff.
Yeah. The stuff that we don't usually like to share.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's the stuff we want to hear about, right?
Right, right. And so it was hard. It was hard, but I've been in therapy continually. Um, Even though I am a therapist, I still am in therapy. So um, I knew the importance, I guess, of sharing the truth and sharing what really happened. And even though it is kind of a taboo subject, and um, I have gotten some reviews that are kind of warning, like warning, warning, this book will trigger you. Like this, don't read it, it's going to trigger you. But I think that's good.
Yeah,
I think it's good that people get triggered
yeah,
because it's a message that
yeah.
you have unresolved trauma.
And I mean, when you pick up that book to read it, it's not like you don't know what it's about, right? You
Right.
you don't know the details or anything, but you kind of have a gist of what you're about to get into.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
yeah, you kind of know that it's going to be a little bit triggering to begin with.
Mhm.
But you're right,
Yeah.
it's important to talk about these topics because when we don't talk about them, nothing changes. And if nothing changes, then we can't get better. And
Right.
society as a whole can't get better.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so important. Mhm.
So, what other coping strategies have you learned?
Well, that's a good question. So the journaling I do every day, I teach meditation as well. So um, the healing that takes place in reparenting is inside your body. I spent my whole life dealing with how to please people, how to be this person, how to behave like a good Christian, looking outside of myself, always looking to others of who I should be. So I had to learn how to go inward and uh, to reparent myself, and to go inward, I had to learn how to meditate. So that's what I teach. It's what I do daily as well. So, how do you go inward? Well, first thing you do is you close your eyes, because right then now you're not focused on anything outside of yourselves. Our eyes are used to um, scan for safety where we're at. So make sure you're in a nice safe place, quiet place in your home, and close your eyes, and then start focusing on your breath. Slow your breath down. And your breath acts like this this doorway that just you travel through as your breath goes from outside your body to the inside your body. So your attention will follow. So your mind will follow from outside your body to the inside of your body. And it just takes a couple of minutes. Now you just focus on your breath and your breathing, and then it naturally draws you to where you're wanting to go. The destination is to the inside of your body. So
That,
breathing is really important. It's a really great tool.
that's fabulous. I struggle with meditation. I try to do it, but it is hard to go inside. There's so much noise outside, and
Mhm.
I mean, for me, there's so much noise inside too.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it is a very difficult thing. But the few times that I have managed to achieve some kind of quietness, it really is helpful.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. And I tell people just a minute a day. Start with a minute a day because it will build. It's a skill.
Yeah,
And if you do it a minute a day, you'll get more and more comfortable with feeling what's going on the inside of your body.
that's a great point. A lot of times we think, and even with exercise, because I'm a personal trainer, and so many people go,
Mm.
"Oh, I don't have time," and I'll go, I don't say a minute, 'cause a minute's not very long for exercise, but I'll say 15 minutes, right?
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be a big, long chunk of time. It can be just 15 minutes when it's exercise. But like I said, a minute for meditation. It can be so fast, but you have to consciously put it into your day.
Exactly. That's why I say a minute because it's really hard to develop a life change. And even breathing a minute a day is not easy.
Yeah.
Because
And
it's a change. It's a
it's
change and change is not easy. So,
no.
or yeah,
A lot of times we want to fight change, and we shouldn't fight change. Change is
mhm,
life. Life is change.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Wonderful. And what would you tell somebody who is struggling right now? Maybe they don't even know that they have PTSD, like you didn't know,
Mhm.
but they're struggling. What are you going to tell them?
Well, I would tell them to start with the minute a day breathing. Because there are struggles. We have to connect to our struggles. That's another thing. The pain is in our body. Emotional pain is manifests in our body. Our emotions are in our body. Our pain is in our body. So somehow find a way to connect to your pain, to your struggles internally. That's the source. Struggling in relationships, struggling with work or addictions or um, all the struggles, I guess, that we have in life. Um, it starts here inside of our body. So connecting to the source of your struggle, don't be afraid of connecting to your pain. The message of pain is help me, help me. So just if it's a minute a day, then that's good enough. But start developing some kind of practice where you can connect to your body and connect to your pain, which is the source. It's the source of your struggles. And start facing it. Start dealing with it. Don't run away. You don't have to be scared. You don't have to run away. Uh, just be with it as little at a time as you can.
And I say every episode that you need to be open and honest with it.
Mhm. Mhm.
That is key. If you aren't honest with yourself, nothing's going to change.
Right.
Same thing if you're
Yeah.
going to therapy, if you're not being honest with your therapist, why are you paying them?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Any last pieces of wisdom that you want to share?
Yeah, it's never too late. It's never too late to start. You're not broken. Um you're not a bad person. You're not weak. Everybody has struggles. and it's never too late. There's help available now, especially now with the research and the internet and podcasts like yours, books. There's a lot of help available right now. It's just that we have to sometimes just give ourselves permission to ask for help. I couldn't That's one of the things that prevented me from healing was I didn't know how to ask for help. I I couldn't. I just I didn't know how. So you can ask for help. Email me. Uh, my email is my name, Dorothy Husen at gmail.com. And I'll talk to you. I just have a conversation. Um, Reach out, look for help. It's never too late.
That is fabulous advice. And where can people pick up your book?
It's on Amazon. It's in audio form. I was gonna read it, but I decided to hire a professional voice
Ah,
narrator to read my book for me. So it's
wonderful.
available in Audible, paperback, and also ebook.
Wonderful. Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm working on my audio version of my one book. I
Mhm.
did it all, and then I realized that a lot of the chapters didn't meet the right criteria.
Oh,
So we'll keep working on it.
yeah.
But I love audiobooks, so I'm so glad that you have that available for everyone. And where can people follow you?
On my website, which is also my name. So just go to my website. I have videos and downloads, teach you how to meditate. I have a newsletter, workshops if you're interested in reparenting yourself. Um, so just my website. So go there and you can buy my book from there too. Everything um,
Perfect.
is there on my
And
website.
all of those links will be down in the description below, so you can very easily find Dorothy and give her a follow, get a hold of her book. And thank you so very much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Again, thank you so much, Dorothy, for being on the show and just sharing your journey with us. That was some excellent tips. And remember, everybody, you can find Dorothy's links down in the description below and get a hold of her book. Be sure to check out my blog. There will be a review of Dorothy's book coming out. And as well, we do have a merch store where 10% of the proceeds go back to the Canadian Mental Health Association, as well as the special line for my brother's designs that go back to the addiction services. And remember, the only way to end the stigma of mental health is to speak openly and honestly.